How does this actually happen? How can a Boeing 777, this is one of the most tracked forms of travel on the entire planet, how can it just vanish with 239 people on board? It's a question that honestly just doesn't make sense in our modern world.
So in this explainer, we're going to get into exactly that. We'll look at what happened in those final moments, what investigators actually know for sure, and why, even now, the search is still alive. Let's dive into the story of MH370, the Phantom flight.
It all started out just completely normal. A standard overnight flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The plane takes off right on schedule. It climbs up to 35,000 feet, just like it's supposed to. Air traffic control even gives them a routine instruction to contact the next control center in Vietnam. Everything, and I mean everything, was perfectly by the book. And then, in an instant, it just wasn't.
And these were the last words anyone ever heard from that cockpit. Good night, Malaysian 370. Just so calm, so routine. No sign of trouble, no distress in the voice, nothing. And then, just moments later, poof, the plane's blip on the radar screen was gone.
Okay, look at this. That single point right there, that's it. That is the exact spot where the normal flight ended and the mystery began. It's right there, over the South China Sea, that MH370's transponder just stopped talking, and for all intents and purposes, the plane became a ghost.
So how does a massive jetliner just become a ghost in the sky? Well, here's what we know. First, the transponder, the thing that tells everyone who and where the plane is, it goes silent. Then, the plane does something totally unexpected. It makes a hard, sharp turn and heads back west, completely off its course. Now, for about another hour, military radar could still see it, just a silent, unknown dot flying back across Malaysia. And then, it vanished from their screens too, heading out over the huge, empty Indian Ocean.
But, and this is maybe the most chilling part of this whole thing, even after it disappeared from all radar, we know it didn't crash. Not yet. The plane kept flying for almost 7 more hours. How do we know that? Well, it's because of these automated pings. Basically, the plane was still having these little digital handshakes with a satellite way up in space. The Phantom flight was in the air, and nobody on the ground knew where it was.
Now, those pings, they gave investigators a clue, but it was a really frustrating one. They pointed to a direction, not a specific spot. So all they could do was map out this absolutely gigantic search area in one of the most remote places on Earth, the southern Indian Ocean. We're talking about an initial underwater search that covered 120,000 square kilometers. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the size of the entire country of Greece.
So for 4 straight years, you have this huge international effort. They're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into this. They've got deep-sea drones, the most advanced sonar you can imagine, scanning this incredibly deep, hostile, uncharted part of the ocean, mile after mile after mile. And after 4 years of that, they found absolutely nothing. Not a single piece.
So with no main wreckage, what were investigators left with? Well, they had basically 2 sets of clues, and they're both kind of ghostly. First, you've got those satellite pings, the ones that created these massive arcs of possibility across the ocean. And then, much later, actual pieces of the plane, a flaperon, parts of the wing, started washing up on shores in Africa. It was heartbreaking proof of a crash, but these fragments alone couldn't tell us the why or the how.
And that's really the heart of the whole problem, right? We have physical proof, debris, that shows the plane crashed into the ocean. We know that much. But the main wreckage, the body of the plane, and especially those crucial black boxes with the flight data and cockpit voice recordings, they are still somewhere out there in the deep. Without those, we know what happened, but we have no idea why it happened.
And if you look at the official report from Malaysia, that's exactly what it says. After all those years, after all the analysis, their conclusion was the team is unable to determine the real cause for the disappearance. It's an official shrug. They just don't know.
But you dig a little deeper into that same report, and you find this one line that is just chilling. The investigators said that while they had no proof, they could not exclude the possibility of intervention by a third party. In other words, the idea that this was a deliberate act, a hijacking, or something else is still officially on the table.
And that brings us to today, because the story isn't over. A US-based company called Ocean Infinity has stepped up, and they think that with new tech, they can find what everyone else missed. And get this, they're so confident that they've made this incredible no-find, no-fee deal. The Malaysian government has said yes. It means they only get $1 if they actually find the plane. And yeah, this isn't some far-off plan. It's happening. The search is back on, right now, focusing on a new, much more specific area that's been pinpointed after years of new analysis. So after more than a decade, the hunt for MH370 is active again. And with it comes this fragile sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, this time will be different.
You know, with all this talk of pings and radar and search zones, it's easy to get lost in the technical stuff. But we can't forget the most important number here, 239. That's not just a number. That's 239 people, 239 lives.
For over a decade, the families of the 227 passengers and the 12 crew members, they've been living in this unimaginable limbo, this agonizing wait for answers. For them, this search has never really been about solving an aviation mystery. It's about closure. It's about finding their loved ones and finally having an answer.
Even the official report itself opens with this dedication, a promise to the memory of those 239 passengers and crew. They will be forever missed, but never forgotten.
It's a profound reminder, isn't it? In our world, a world that's just filled with satellites and sensors, where we feel like everything is tracked all the time, MH370 shows us that some mysteries can still be bigger than our technology.
So the search goes on. But I want to know what you think. What's the single most haunting part of this entire mystery to you? Let me know down in the comments.